Hi, everybody. Welcome to History 302, Liberty and Revolution in Modern Europe in the Americas. A long title for us here. I am Dr. Vale, and I am your instructor for this course this semester. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself before I get into the general overview of the class to start us off here. I received my doctorate at ASU in American history and public history, so some of the components of the things that we'll cover in this class obviously are heavily geared to my background, especially the sections that are within the Americas. My interest is actually on displays of ideas of science and technology, some of which are influential in terms of thinking about the emergence of the modern state, which we will see some of here in the sort of evolution of revolutions in the Atlantic world. To get into the information about the class, right? A few of you have already emailed me about this. We are looking at revolutions in what's known as the Age of Revolutions, which is the period of time in which we have an outpouring of revolutionary sentiment across many different regions and peoples throughout the Americas and Europe. We are not going to focus on every single revolution because we only have 7.5 weeks together, but we are going to follow the general framework of the major revolutions of the time period in the region that we can refer to as the Atlantic world. So we're specifically engaging with colonialism and specifically the issue of slavery as we go through this next couple weeks. When we are looking at ideas of liberty, there are some major themes that we're going to cover, and our assignments will be geared around these questions. Essentially, there's this relationship between ideas of the time period, Enlightenment age ideas, how they are understood, evolved by revolutionary thinkers, and then there is the implementation or the actual things that are happening on the ground in all of these different regions in which revolutions are happening. So the reason we're doing something like the Age of Revolutions, right, is to have a sort of, comparative and much more all-encompassing sort of approach to the idea of revolution versus just individually focusing on one revolution or a couple revolutions in the course of the semester. The other major question that we're asking ourselves as we go through these next few months is going to be the question of what we exactly see revolutions accomplishing, how revolutionary are revolutions, and what do we consider to be revolutionary within a revolution. So a lot of our discussion questions, our major assignments throughout the next couple months are going to be on these big questions like this that give you the opportunity to expand and think about all of the ways in which these ideas are interconnected, and these actions are also interconnected amongst all of these different empires and all of these different colonial entities. In terms of how the class is laid out, as of right now, this may change after I make this video. I don't have a grader, so I'm the sole grader for the class. Anything that's going on in terms of grades throughout the semester is going to be through me. So if you have any questions about grading as you go through the semester, feel free to shoot me an email or send me something on Canvas. The layout of the class is pretty similar to what you may have seen with the sample version of the syllabus that's been up for some time. There are 3 modules that correspond to our main text, which is Wim Kloester's Revolutions in the Atlantic World, right? So we are basically splitting our modules up into the major empires of the age. So we're starting with British Empire and revolutions in the British Empire, specifically the American Revolution. Then we will go into revolutions in the French Empire, where we will look at the chapters in Klooster that are about the French Revolution and the Haitian Revolution. And then we will finish on revolutions in the Spanish Empire, which are a series of revolutions throughout Latin America. So make sure that you buy Klooster. I think this is on the syllabus, but I have the newer edition here. If you chose to buy the newer edition, totally fine. I have both versions. They're not super different. If you want to buy the older edition because it's cheaper, that's also totally fine. Either version is going to work. So either version of Klooster, make sure you buy Klooster because this is the main text and we're basically reading the entire thing. We will have some other sources that will be helpful throughout the course of the semester, a lot of primary sources mainly, so that we get a sense of what's going on in these regions throughout this time period. You don't really need to do any outside research for this course specifically. Everything that we'll do throughout these 7.5 weeks will be engaging with the sources that I'm giving you. If you choose to go outside of the source material, especially for a main assignment, make sure you contact me about that. You want to make sure you're not using history.com or ThoughtCo or Wikipedia or some of the things that people really like to use. This is an upper division course for history majors, so you should use scholarly source material whenever you're doing any major formal assignment. So keep that in mind. You really don't have to do outside research. I would encourage you not to do it, actually, for this class. In terms of how assignments look, there are 3 major assignments, one for each module. They are all going to be written assignments. There's no tests in this class, and they are all going to be building off of one another. So people who have the question, is the last assignment cumulative? Yes, because we are looking at the big picture of revolutions and the age of revolutions. So when you do the Module 1 assignment, right, you'll only know about general discussions about what we view revolutions to be in this particular time period, and then only specifically about what's going on in the American Revolution. So your answers will be very different when you're at that point in the course versus once you have all of these different revolutions to get a sense of what's going on in a bigger sort of picture. So we're building off of things as we go. When I give you feedback for a Module 1 or a Module 2 assignment, it should give you the sense of whether you're on the right track when you answer your next set of questions for an essay for the next module assignment. And again, you don't need to do outside research for those assignments. You just need to make sure that you're using a variety of source material to answer the questions, and you're citing that source material when you do it. The other graded assignments in the course are all going to be discussion board posts, and it's a sizable percentage of your grade. This is essentially to do a couple of different things. First, I want to get a sense that you're reading the readings, right, and you're engaging with all of the sources that we look at over the course of the semester. You don't have to use citations in discussion board posts, but they should be long, right, sizable sort of answers. And what I mean by that is not pages and pages worth of response, but not 2 sentences either, right? So people tend to ask for like a guideline on how to go about doing this. You should probably have total, right, around 300 word response for an initial. Your response post can be shorter than that as long as you're not saying, cool, sounds good, I agree with that post, right? You want to make sure that you're adding something to the discussion. And this is the way the discussion works. Wednesday each week, you'll have an initial post that you need to make by Wednesday at midnight, and then Sunday of that, the end of that week, you will respond to somebody else in the discussion. I do split up discussion into smaller groups so you get to know a smaller group of people within the class over the course of the semester, because we have quite a few people in this class. So if you want to, on your first week, privately message some of these people that are in your discussion board group to exchange information or something like that, definitely feel free to do that. Or if you want to talk about some other things in there, you're more than welcome to do so. I know sometimes it's hard to get to know people, feel camaraderie in an online class, so this is one of the reasons why I do that. But yes, 2 discussion board posts a week. Make sure you do them. Canvas will not tell you when something is due on a Wednesday, so you do want to make sure it does that. If I could get Canvas to do it, I would, but it's not built into the software, so I can't do that. When you're answering discussion board posts, one of the guidelines that I would give you is look at the question for the discussion board before you start doing the reading, because the discussion board questions will help guide your reading. I know we're all on a limited time schedule. We pack a lot of information into these 7.5 week classes, and it's hard. So if I give you, multiple sources in a given week and it's overwhelming to you, definitely look at the question first. The question will guide you on the things that you really need to focus on for that given week. Especially when we're looking at something like Klooster, there may be times where it's useful to really focus in on certain parts of the chapter and kind of skim others, get the gist of what's going on, and then just move on from there. As far as how things will operate on Canvas, modules will open one at a time. So module 1 will be open now, the first day that you're able to view the Canvas course. As we get closer to the end of module 1, I will open module 2. And then once we get to the end of module 2, I'll open module 3. This is to give you a good degree of flexibility in terms of the reading that you want to do in advance, if that's something that you need to do because of your schedule, but also not allow you to complete the class in the first 2 weeks in which we're, available to you. So this is the way in which, for an online course, you have that level of flexibility there. If you have any questions about anything throughout the semester, please email me, cvale@asu.edu. You can also send me an inbox on Canvas, which works pretty effectively because it'll send me a message as soon as you send something to me. If it's something that you feel like would be better served by a conversation over the phone, which sometimes, instead of us just going back and forth on email a million times is the better option. We can also definitely set up a time to talk on the phone or talk on Skype. I do live in the Phoenix area if you're somebody that needs or would wish to meet in person, and we can discuss that as well. Few major points that I want to make before I end this video because I don't want this to go on too long. First, when you do major assignments, the 3 major assignments that we have, which you have to do citations for, make sure that you do the standard citation style for history majors, which is Chicago Turabian, also known as footnote style. If you've never used footnotes before, then there are a lot of free guides online to do something like this. It's pretty standard, pretty straightforward. I will give you feedback on your first assignment if it's something that you seem to be struggling with, but I will take points off for major assignments if you're not using Chicago style. So make sure that you do that. Try to avoid sending me too many questions about citations. Just use the guides, use your best, educated guess on how it's supposed to look, and it probably is fine. The other major thing I want to mention is plagiarism. Since these are all written assignments from the discussion board post to the 3 module assignments, there's a lot of opportunity for plagiarizing. You probably already know that everything you submit is going to go through Turnitin, like many ASU assignments do, but this is a huge thing for history classes. Don't ruin your academic career because you don't have the time or you don't feel like completing an assignment. It's better to turn in work that is not your best or late than it is to plagiarize, so please don't do that. As far as other standards are concerned, anything regarding disability services or, turning in late assignments or contesting a grade, all of those things are available in the syllabus, and I'm not going to go over them because it just is a waste of time and a waste of you listening to me talk when you can just read it yourself. So I'm going to leave the video here at this. It is a pleasure to meet all of you. I'm looking forward to having you in the class. Please, if you have questions about Canvas, if you have a hard time finding things, let me know as early as possible so you make sure you're on the right page. The modules are in Canvas. All of the material will be in the modules aside from Klooster. So if you have not bought Klooster, please buy Klooster ASAP. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your beginning week, and I look forward to seeing you in the discussion board.